to the Gen X Remix, Midlife, Laughs, and Next Acts, the podcast for bold Gen X women who are done playing small and are ready to build a business or career that lights you up. I'm your host, Tabitha Jones, the corporate escape Sherpa and career advancement and leadership coach. Before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out about my upcoming workshop, Escape with Confidence. Clarity, purpose, and action for your bold next act. It is the perfect 2-session workshop for Gen X women who are ready to finally get serious about building their next chapter with clarity, courage, and a step-by-step plan. You'll find the link in the show notes, so be sure to grab your spot today. Now, today's episode is going to be a fun one. It is all about designing your life on your terms. Our guest today is Julie Noonan. She's an ICF accredited executive coach, organizational change expert, and founder of Intuitive Wisdom Coaching. She's a truth teller, RV traveling nomad, and a wise woman in every sense you can imagine. She's also the host of the podcast Roaming with Restless Women, so be sure to add that to your favorite podcast list. After 3 decades in corporate and consulting, Julie left it all behind to build a business and a life that aligned with her values. In today's conversation, we explore how she navigated career reinvention, ageism, and the should I or shouldn't I moments that come with any bold midlife pivot. Get ready to feel seen, heard, and fired up. Let's go. Julie, welcome to the Gen X Remix. How are you doing today?
Oh, I'm great. How are you?
Oh my gosh, so good. I just finished playing a game of pickleball and had just enough time to spruce up before our conversation. So super feeling energized right now.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we are going to dive right in and hit you with my favorite question. And that is, can you tell us a bit about your remix story?
Yes. So when I was 57 years old and was working with a consulting company, I'm an organizational change manager. Was working with a consulting company and COVID hit. And 3 months later, in June, I got laid off. So I decided, okay, well, I'll go ahead and start my own business. And I did do that. And then I have had this idea in my mind for many years that I wanted to sell everything, move into an RV and travel around the country and still work. And so 3 years after that, we did that. So we sold our house and put everything else in storage that we had to keep and moved into our RV. And so that was my remix. I basically created my company around what I wanted my life to be from now on.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. And I think that's one of the things when we first met about a year ago that I was just so inspired by. You're like, you know what? I am bound by nothing, not even a house. I'm hopping in my RV and going where I want.
That's right. The only thing I'm bound by is making enough money to keep the gas in the car.
That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, and at least you're not in California because that gas price is a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
My baby car was just $80 yesterday. So that's
oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And you said right now in your travels, you're in Florida. So how are you liking it there?
Well, Florida's kind of our home base. I don't like to be cold. I never want to be cold again in my life. And so plus my kids are down here, my grown girls, they're down here. And so we decided that we would make Florida our home base. So we moved down here before we decided to do all the travel stuff. And so in the winters, or when it gets close to winter, we come back down here, get our spot for the season, and then head out. Well, last year we headed out in March. This year we're not going to head out until June because now I have a grandchild and he is within 15 minutes of here and I'm dragging my heels.
Oh my gosh. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be hard to leave him.
Oh, I can't even imagine. And when my son listens to this episode, he's going to be, oh gosh, the pressure's coming from mom again. One day, one
Oh, yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Oh, congratulations. That is
Well, thank you.
huge. Oh, and I'm with you. I don't do cold very well. When I say it's cold, people out of state laugh because they know I'm in California and they say, what does that mean? I'm like, it means I'm cold and it's probably, I don't know, 52, maybe 48. It's too cold.
Oh,
Too
yeah,
cold.
exactly. Yeah, I don't
Uh,
like it when it gets that low either.
oh my gosh. So let's kind of hop into a little bit of your backstory, kind of what brought you here. I know you experienced that layoff, and when we spoke, there we talked about some things that you were experiencing through that shift. Because I don't know that you initially were planning to start your business. Is that correct?
Well, what happened was in uh, 2 years before that, or 3 years before that, I had been working for the state of Tennessee. And, in the state, when you're working for a state government, when the governor turns over, there's the possibility, if you're in the executive service, that you will, just be replaced. And so that's what happened. And so I started my business then, but it was just to do a couple of projects while I was looking for my next gig. So um, when I experienced that layoff, it wasn't that I wasn't expecting it, because it happens so frequently. It's not the same as when you get laid off from a corporate gig. That's for sure. But when that happened, that was probably when I started on this introspection and this reflection journey. I was 55 at the time, and I started thinking about, okay, what led me here? What do I love about what I do? What do I love about my life? Where do I want to go? And who do I want to take with me? And if I lived my absolutely dream life, what would it look like? So while I was doing these ancillary projects, they weren't very large nor very taxing on me. I did spend that time to really, really stop and think how I wanted my life to be. And in doing so, I knew that I wanted to help other women, particularly younger women, to not have to reinvent the wheel. But I also recognize that how the corporate environment that I grew up in is very different than the corporate environment they're growing up in, particularly after COVID. COVID really reset a lot of our expectations. And so that's when I started thinking about, I need to go and do and officially do what I should have done years ago and get my coaching certification. And so I did that. And that's that feeling of that need to give back grows as we get older, I think, especially once you start having, children and grandchildren who are getting into the working age. So not only was I thinking about what do I want my world to look like, what do I want to pass along that could help the younger generation with their worlds and their experience in the workforce. So when I got into the workforce in the 90s, it was more dog eat dog. It was particularly woman versus woman. And I think it was because we were trying to play in the man's world. We were trying to play like they play, which is competition and, doing whatever you need to do to get ahead, that sort of thing. And so I had very good experiences working collaboratively with other women in my early career. And I wanted that to change for this generation. So I wound up basing a lot of the work that I do around gathering wisdom from women like ourselves, wisdom from women who have been through a lot, either in their personal life or their professional lives, and all of us have been through an enormous amount of things. And that was my new mission, basically my life mission. And that took a lot of pressure off of the professional mission, you know, and it redefined for me what success looks like. So it took a lot, it became more joyful, um, because it felt like it wasn't all for me and I wasn't trying to impress anybody. And there was no need for the corner office. There was no need for all the hype and all the money and all the whatever. And it was amazing when that shifted for me. Now it still comes back, but in thinking about what am I leaving as my legacy, or what do I want to do for the last, however long I work, it became more joyful because it was from my heart and for other people.
I love that so much. So much about just leaning into your purpose. And it is
Mhm.
so freeing. And it's hard for people to understand. And there's a balance, right? I mean, you've
Mhm.
walked this very similar walk with me. I spent years, I was in corporate in the 1900s. I spent years,
Yeah.
always a joke for our Gen Zs and millennials. It was a different kind of place. And it was a place where early on in my career, we needed to stay quiet and just do your work. And we built really bad habits because of that. And, in my own career, I've shared that I learned so much during that time and learned how to shift that and pivot it and actually work it to my advantage so I could help others do that. But that calling was so powerful when I got to that point. And people would just say, "Are you crazy? You make a lot of money. You're walking away from all of that." I worked for the cable company. I had free cable, like, I don't know, I feel like my whole life.
Oh,
When that first cable bill
yeah.
came, I was like, "Wow, we are streamers. We are streaming."
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's just you start realizing that you can live without certain things because you feel so much joy and purpose and just meaning in the work that you're doing sometimes. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't want to take away from the corporate world because I had a lot of joy and purpose and meaning
Oh,
there.
yeah. Hmm.
But this has been so different because, to your point, right? You have control. There's not anyone else that you have to suck up to stay in that corner
Yeah.
office. Nobody else has control of, oh, well, you don't work here anymore. You get to
Hmm.
choose when you want to do something different or how you want to show up differently, or
Hmm.
you're working with younger women, like maybe one day you want to work with more midlife. You get the power of
Hmm.
that control, and it's such a great feeling. Oh my
It
gosh,
is. I love it.
such a great story. And I'd say that when we get into our 50s, and I don't know, I'd love to hear your perspective on this too. Things just start to look very different. I don't have grandchildren yet, so that's something I'm looking forward to in my future. No pressure, Tyler.
Yeah.
But but I definitely feel like there came a point where I thought, was I meant to be on this planet? Was my time meant to be spent helping a multi-billion dollar company make multi-million dollars more every year? And yes, I influenced a lot of people's careers. And yes, I influenced people's lives. But I had so many restrictions, right? You can only do so many things. It's like when you're a teacher and you're not supposed to hug kids anymore. It's kind of like that with your employees, right? There still have to be boundaries. And I hit that point where I was getting ready to turn 50. And I was like, if I don't do it now, when will I do it? And I feel like I will regret not making this change. And I don't really need any more things. I can go
Exactly.
get what I really need. So for you, with that pull, kind of, were you feeling those same things? Did you have any different kind of thoughts or perspective on that?
Absolutely. I felt that pull not quite as early as 50, but when I was nearing that 55 age, and I knew I was likely going to going to leave the state, um, I started to experience a little bit of wow, noticing that the recruiters weren't calling me like they used to. Noticing that, I put out a few feelers before the layoff actually happened because I knew it was coming. And I wasn't getting the response. I was getting, oh, you're too experienced. So I ran headlong into ageism at the time.
Yeah.
The other difference between you and I is that uh, I was not quiet. I am not a quiet personality. And so when I went into my professional life and it was all competition all the time, you know, I played hard. I played hard and I was tired.
Yeah.
I was tired of having to worry about every word I said. I was tired of getting the same feedback of, you're too much, or yeah, you're leading with your emotion, and it's all feedback that at the time was par for the course for the culture I was living in, but it wasn't authentically true to me. And so that's why I kept trying to fit myself into a hole when I was a square peg.
Mm.
And it was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting. I much preferred when I was in consulting, being able to go in, get the job done, uh, wow the client, and move on. Uh, because they didn't have a preconceived notion of me, or Julie does not have a problem expressing her opinion about stuff. Julie's hard to deal with. Blah, blah, blah. Well,
Mm.
yeah, I am when I'm looking at a new system from an end user perspective, and you're telling me that I have to help them assimilate and adopt that system within a month, and you're giving me no time to create training for it. Yeah, I'm going to say something. Yeah, so anyway, that's just an example, but that that was part of it. I didn't fit, and I was tired, and I decided, look, if I was meant to be in that kind of environment, I should feel more more joy than I did. The
Yeah.
joy that I felt was in the work that I did in my team. All the rest of it, I could care less. All the political finagling and all this. I just want to be left alone to do what I did best with the team that I loved and move on. So that was how I came into really deciding not only what did I want to do, but what my company would stand for. And now I have the two companies. I have my consulting company, and then I have Intuitive Wisdom, which is my coaching company. So what do I stand for? I stand for enabling women, regardless of age, to be authentic in their workplace, authentic in their life, um, regardless of anybody else's opinion.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so
So,
empowering. And I love it. Whoever's listening to this that just heard you say that I was quiet is busting up laughing right now because I
oh,
wasn't. I
really?
was those first couple of years, those first 10 years while I was trying to figure it out. The last 20, I was like, yeah, this here, hold my beer. Kind of every day, right? But
Oh,
I get
yeah.
that. Oh my gosh, I was in that spot. We had one last reorg. The leadership team went through it in 2019. The rest of
Oh,
our team of 400 went through it at the very beginning of 2020. And I was exhausted, just like you say, like you're fighting against this thing all the time because now this new leadership team, they want it this certain way. And I'm like, I've never run my team like a 60-year-old white man would run a team. Like that's not how I
right.
do things. I don't be standing up, but I don't tell people what to do. Like I ask them for their feedback and their thoughts. And it just
Yeah.
was like, I can't do this anymore. So I feel you on such a deep level right now, sister.
Oh, good. Maybe
And
it's going
that
to help other people.
I hope so because you know, we're going to touch on that ageism piece a little bit too, but I've worked a lot with women who they were laid off unexpectedly in their 50s. And until they've experienced it, they don't get it, right? So teaching them how to mask your age on your resume. It's not a lie.
Oh
You
gosh.
get your age off that resume. There are no 1900s on anyone's resume that I have done. There are barely
Nope.
any early 2000s. Making sure that, when they're talking about their examples or presenting themselves forward, we're not talking about what you were doing back out of high school. We're talking about what you've done and the impact you've had the last 5 years, because you've got to come in with that energy if you're looking for a job.
Hmm.
And it's the other piece of it. And I just had this conversation with someone yesterday who does similar work to me with the corporate escape Sherpa side of it. She said, well,
Hmm.
people can always pivot and go back to their job. If they leave, go start their business and they don't like it, they can go back. I said, oh, you're working with younger people, because when you're in your 50s, when you make that decision, it's really hard to go back. And it's definitely, that ageism is so strong and so scary. I hate that you experienced that. So we're going to,
It was pretty rough. I felt it took a while for me to have the wise woman realization. And it was really literally a vision that I had, because I was so down and depressed, and it was really rough. Um, and then I had this vision. I call it a vision. It was a thought. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I'm not one of these spiritual woo-woo people, but I
woo-ish.
had, yeah, I had a vision of, it was really my grandmother, but it wasn't. You know how you have those
Yeah.
displaced things, but we always thought that my grandmother's family had descended from Cherokee Indians. She looked exactly she looked like a Cherokee Indian woman, um, and she was so wise and so kind and so practical, just practical, and never judged people. And I loved that about her. Because if there's one thing that will push people away from you, or a religion, or a movement, or anything, it's judging,
Yeah.
particularly if it's hypocritical judging. So I really admired that in her and wanted to be like her. And when I saw that vision, I had this vision of her sitting, or somebody like her sitting on a hill under a big tree, dressed as a shaman, like a wise woman in a tribe. And I started thinking about what, what was her biggest strength. And I started going down through that in my mind. And then I thought, okay, there are women like this in every single culture in the whole world. And, I have read The Red Tent. I have read, The Handmaid's Tale. I've read a lot of feminist literature. And there's something about the power of the wise woman to keep the community together, to step in the middle of fights, to train and teach the younger generation, boys and girls, how to be in community and how to be in relationships, and how to stand up for back then when the men went off to war. She was the tip of the spear for that community. It was her responsibility to keep them safe and fed and ready for when they return. And that's the kind of woman I want to be. And that's the kind of woman I want other women to realize that they already are. I think that every woman has a wise woman inside of her. And everybody's already wise, but she only grows with more experiences. And when we can share those with each other, as opposed to what I experienced in the 90s of the competition, but when we actually sit down and can share our experiences with each other, how much more we learn and how much richer our lives are. I mean, what would we be without our girlfriends, right?
Oh my gosh. I can't even imagine. I just,
Yeah, exactly.
thinking of that, and just, right now, I mean, just politically, it's time for women to pull together instead of standing apart. I'm like, this is the time, things are at risk,
Absolutely.
and I'm not going to go all the way down the trail, but it's absolutely, to your point, like we've experienced so many things at our ages that we can easily shed light for the younger generations that are coming up. And to your point, younger men too, like they need that raising and that perspective. I Yeah, I love that. It's so good, Julie.
Thank you.
Question for you. So, kind of shifting to your new business on the coaching side, tell me a little bit about the clients that come to you. Kind of what are they looking for support with, and how are you helping?
What I advertise and who I help the most are actually senior women leaders. The age doesn't really matter, it's the seniority. Um, who kind of get it to the point, almost like at the 50s point or my 55 point, where they're starting to realize that they they've made some sort of a stake in the ground. They've been successful, but it's not enough anymore. And they want to do something bigger in the world. Or they want to be more planful about their next step. So it could be a career conversation. Most often it is a change conversation, is what I wind up calling them, change coaching. Mainly because um, women tend to think long and hard and plan before they make a decision. And these days, things are so VUCA, so volatile, so chaotic in their lives that they sometimes get stuck. And that's probably the biggest thing that women come to me for is I think I know where I want to go, but I want to do it, but I'm kind of scared to move forward. What if, what if, what if, what if? And they get stuck in this in their head. And so they'll come and I say, come and bring whatever is bothering you. It doesn't matter what it is. We're going to take a look at how you value things. And we're going to base your decisions not on what somebody else is going to do, not on what somebody else is going to think, but on what you value. And then you can make a plan and move forward. But until you know what you want to align yourself with, um, and where you want to create value in the world, you're going to wind up doing 18,000 different things and not getting anywhere with anything and being less satisfied than you are now. And I call that playing your A game versus your B game. And it comes from axiogenics. It's a value-based, science-based measure of value. And once you kind of get in the groove of thinking about is in every moment is what I'm doing next, creating value in the world for somebody, either for me, my husband, my next client, my whoever. Once you get in that mindset, it makes the decisions that you make much more aligned with how you really are inside and where your assets are. So that's what they come to me for. And I love it. I have the most awesome conversations you can just imagine. And that's what basically led me to doing my podcast and finding women like you
I love it. It's so
to
good.
talk to.
I mean, people that don't have a podcast wouldn't know this, but just the people that we meet. And I feel like every person that I have met through podcasting was meant to be connected to
Oh,
me in
yeah.
some way for some reason. And I love that. And your podcast just adds so much value. And it's
Oh,
roaming with
thanks.
Restless Women, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, so good. Because that's it. We need community. We need to pull together, and we need to understand that sometimes that feeling of being stuck and overthinking and just that feeling we're not quite in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to get out of that without help sometimes, because we'll just,
Oh,
to your
yeah.
point, kind of keep spinning. I've done it myself on different things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, do I really want to? And then when you sit down and you think about what do I value? What impact do I want to have? It does help make your decisions. So I love that you're doing this for women and helping them get through the decision making and change process faster.
It helps make better decisions. I haven't had anybody come back and say, my decision was a mistake.
Yeah.
which that's great. It may not be exactly what you wanted, but the tweaking is not a big deal. It's the actual, I'm going from here to here. That's the hard part.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Tell me, what is one of the things that I was reading through as I was preparing for our conversation today? You had a quote about fighting the inner Neanderthal. Where does that come in, and what is that?
Oh, when I say inner Neanderthal, what I mean is how humans had to do things and think things and react to things to survive. It's a lot of the instinctual programming. So that's why I even have a job as a change management consultant, because humans react to any change, whether it's positive or negative, in one of three ways, and it's all about survival. It's fight, flight, or freeze. I hate saying that because it's ties
The
me
three
up
F's.
verbally, but yeah, the three F's. And there's a fourth one these days. But
Hmm.
it's F it basically.
That's what I was guessing. I was like, you can say it.
Okay. But yeah, it's fight, flight, or freeze, and I find a lot of times when I get surprised by something, or when there's a great, huge emotional turmoil, um, a wedding is a perfect example. If I have to go to a wedding, I will have these feelings, especially if it's one of my family. And some of us differ politically and in other ways. I have to gird myself up and literally vision myself locking my Neanderthal in its cage, because I can't afford to react negatively, because it's the wedding, right? So I think a lot of us grew up, especially those of us were less emotionally intelligent before it was like an actual word,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm speaking back in the 90s again. That Neanderthal was running loose in my head throughout the 90s. And that's part of the fight that I continue to have occasionally when something's unexpected happens. I have been a Neanderthal since January 20th. I am working harder on my Neanderthal in the last 2 to 3 months than I ever have in my life, only because um, there are things that I feel like are attacking my very humanity and my idea of how the world should be versus how it is. And yes, I have to lock up that Neanderthal. I have to fight it every day. And it's not easy. It's not easy in some situations. So that's what I mean by fighting the Neanderthal. Mine's name is Xena, warrior princess.
Oh, she has a name. I like it. Okay. I was
Yes.
giving mine a name and I'm adding that forth. The effort is so important. It
Yeah.
actually solves kind of everything I've been stuck with, because I'm like, I say
Exactly.
that a lot. So which one is that? Now I know it has its own. And, when you
It's
talk
probably
about,
the best one, actually.
it's my favorite.
Yeah.
But when you talk about, before we all became emotional intelligent or we even knew what that meant, I think
Yeah.
back, and I know I've shared this on other episodes, but I think back to how we were raised. We were raised differently. Boomer, borderline parents, whichever end of it they were on. But
Mhm.
we as Gen Xers, we weren't really raised to express our feelings. We were raised to kind of put them in deep
Mm-mm.
down inside and suck them up. I mean, I think back, and, if my mom's listening, this is not about you. This is how parenting was back then.
Yes.
But, it was, oh, are you going to cry? Well, I'll give you something to cry about. It's like, well, no, I really want to cry. But, it's like, oh, I better hold the fear or the sadness in because someone's
Hmm.
going to punish me if I cry. Or, speaking up for yourself or saying how you feel, it didn't really matter. You were still expected to go do that thing, and that was going to get done, whether you liked it or not. And, we didn't have, and I'm sure not every family was this way, but generationally, we were pretty I joke, the whole Gen X is so feral. I'm like, kind of in some ways we are. We did our thing and we drink out of hoses and stuff. But on the flip
Mm-hmm.
side, we also freeze a lot waiting for someone else's approval.
Yeah, we do.
And we people please, and we do the things that prevent that somebody's going to give us something to cry about emotion that we don't ever want to feel again as 50-year-old women, but we still sometimes will hesitate and have to shove it back in. So one, I'm going to have to name mine because she's still in there sometimes. But I do
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of our upbringing and the way we were raised and the times caused a lot of that. Where I look at our millennials and our Gen Zers, and sometimes we're like, "Oh, you shouldn't say that. Nobody cares. Too much feeling, too much feeling." So finding that really great balance and being emotional intelligent at the right time is so critical and complicated. And to your point, uh, I'm with you since January 20th. I'll see a post or something and I'll instantly go, oh, I gotta respond to that. And I'm like, don't respond to that. Like you're
Yeah.
just
No.
feeding a fire that you can't right now. You just need to get back to yourself. You need to do what you can to support the things that you believe in and just keep your heads high. We don't talk about politics in my family either.
Yeah, it's a futile thing.
Yeah,
What I have noticed, and I don't know if you've noticed this, but recently in some of my masterminds and my women's groups, over the last probably month and a half, they've turned into an exploration of should I or shouldn't I?
hmm,
Should I stand up? How I want to stand up. I want to rail against the system. I want to, really support the things that I believe in. I want to be one of the people that actually made a difference in this time and place. And there's so much that's going on that it is a historic moment for us in this country. And I don't want to be the one that let it happen without being represented somewhere. And we've been talking about this in our women's groups about what's it going to do to my business? What's it going to do to my reputation? Well, being the loud, outspoken one that I am, I said in one of my groups, I can't not say this because then that means I'm going back to being inauthentic, and my clients deserve better than that. Now, am I going to, throw personal barbs and crap like that? No, but I am going to argue facts, and I am going to be known as not in this boat. I'm not in this boat. It's not my president. So, sure, it's gonna trim off some opportunities for me. But at the end of the day, what do I care more about? Money or people? And if you look at what's going on in the world, that is the exact decision that we all need to be making for ourselves from our perspective. Is it money or is it people? And with my value system, it has to always be people. It has to always be people that are way more important than any money, any amount of money. And because they're life, it's life. Money is not life.
yeah.
So
I
I'm
agree with
sorry.
you. No,
I'm
it's
getting
okay. I know we
emotional.
weren't going to go too far here, but it's okay
No,
because,
but
yes, it's definitely a topic in a lot of my friends' circles. Most of us are in the same space. This year was very different because usually let's agree to disagree, but it's really hard to do that when it comes down to human rights and
absolutely.
impossible, by the way. The interesting thing is, I had a conversation with a friend who shared that she was at a group meeting at her synagogue and they were talking about different things. And she said she was having a really hard time picking. She's like, what is the thing? I can't fight everything. And I said, it comes down to sitting quietly and coming up with what is the thing that you want to fight. And you can't fight everything. You have to keep some sanity. But you know what I told her, and I've said this to a few people, and now I'm putting it out in the whole world. I said, the good news, because I am always looking for something positive, and it's been hard.
Yes.
It has been hard, sister. It has been so hard. The good news is weirdly, many of us are starting to unite. I'm like, we have women. Now you've come after women. You've come after the LGBTQIA. You've come after brown people. You've come after Black people. You've come after Jewish people. Who's next? Like, because we are
Veterans,
all
yeah.
banding, veterans, poor people, like in poverty situations, elderly people now with, Medicare and Social Security being at
Yeah.
risk. I'm
Hello.
like, I think about my mom. I'm like, she
Mhm.
depends on that. And now, we have no one to answer the phone. Senior citizens don't go to some app to get technical help with their money. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I volunteer with organizations that distribute food in my community, and seeing the food banks are getting hit now. And I, there's definitely some light in seeing that we're not becoming united the way that we hope to, but we're definitely becoming united.
And I'm really encouraged as well by the conversations that are being had.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of conversations that are coming out of this that may never have been broached. That we thought we had the right idea about, slavery or the impact or the civil. We thought we had made all this progress, and all of a sudden we find out, oh, maybe we need to go back and have those same conversations over again, but with different lenses.
Yeah.
With more growth, with more thought, with more, okay, it's been X number of years since that. How has it turned out? What do we still have to work on? We're not done with growing as a people.
No. But then why are we still having conversations that we were having 50 years ago? Why are we going
Oh, right.
backwards in all of this, right? It's just so mind-boggling. And I think that the biggest issue I have with what's going on is the lack of big picture thinking. There's
Oh,
no big
huge.
picture thinking. It's me. How does this impact me? And what does it do for me today? And I'm like, the world's not about you. Nobody gives a shit about you, quite frankly. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you disappeared, just like a job, right? Once you're out of that job, guess what? They didn't have any problem figuring out what they were
Yeah.
going to do with the work I was doing. Same thing with your existence on this planet. So you might as well make your time here meaningful, and maybe start thinking about other people who may or may not be like you. Like, we could talk about this all day, so we better.
Oh, we could.
But yeah, it's a really interesting time. And I think that I'm just going to say big picture thinking is probably where some people need to go and stop looking at the same news channel that's feeding you the same information again and again. And if we could do that and start seeing the world through a different lens, I think we'd be in a much better place. All right. So all that's out. I feel better. Pickleball
me too.
and a little bit of political purge. Yes, I'm here for it.
Me too.
So tell me, Julie, if we have a listener today who's thinking, oh my gosh, I have got to connect with Julie. I have been so stuck on this thing, and I bet you she's the one that can help me through this. How can they connect with you?
A couple ways. Intuitive Wisdom Coach. It's not coaching. My website is intuitivewisdomcoach.com. You can connect with me through there, or you can link in with me on LinkedIn. jnoonanconsulting.com is my other website. And of course, listen to Roaming with Restless Women look on YouTube or any podcast channel. And you'll see my episode with Tabitha on there.
Yes. Oh my gosh. All those links will be in the show notes, so nobody has to remember them by heart. But I definitely love every time we connect, Julie. I learn something new about you.
That's great.
I learn how many things we have in common, and some things that we have a little bit of a slightly different perspective on. So I always learn and grow when we're together. So
same here.
Before we sign off, do you have any final parting words of inspiration or advice for our listeners?
Just pay attention to how you're making your decisions and make sure that they are aligned with the things that you value in the world.
I love that. That's perfect. All right. From one square peg being shoved into a round hole to another. This has been so much fun. Thank you, Julie. And we will definitely be in touch again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tabitha.
Well, that was a fabulous episode. Friends, if you're feeling stuck at the edge of your own remix and wondering if it's too late, or too risky, or if you're even allowed to want more, Julie just dropped a literal masterclass in how to create your own next chapter with intention, wisdom, and zero apologies. Be sure to check out Julie's podcast, Roaming with Restless Women, and connect with her at intuitivewisdomcoach.com. All the links are in the show notes. And hey, if you're ready to make your own bold move, don't forget to register for the workshop or grab my free guide, Escape with Confidence, a step-by-step roadmap to your bold next act. Both of those can be found at my website, corporateescapesherpa.com, and will also be listed in the show notes. Until next time, friends, keep playing your A game, trust your inner wise woman, and remember, success in midlife isn't about a corner office. It's about building a life that finally fits you. Until next time.